What's up guys, my name is Ace, and recently in Black Ops 7 we got quite a big weapon balancing adjustment, as well as a handful of other adjustments and very importantly some key bug fixes. And in today's video we're going to be diving deep into all of these changes, and there's a lot to go through, so let's just dive right in. And the first thing I want to mention with weapon balancing is almost across the board, they reduced the recoil penalties on the damage barrels, so the barrels that improve your headshot multiplier. While it didn't change for every single gun in the game, most of the guns saw a reduction to the amount of recoil that you'll end up seeing with that, which is a nice bonus for that. And I'm not going to cover each one of those changes individually with side-by-side comparisons, because I'd like to get the video out this week and not next week. But when it comes to more specific changes here, with the Maddox RFB, this one caught another nerf with the update, and this was a nerf to recoil. And as we can see here, while the magnitude is a little bit higher, the main thing to point out is the recoil has a lot more randomness mixed into it. It's not quite as predictable, and therefore it's definitely going to be more difficult to control, especially if you're holding down the trigger for too long. Although in saying that, keep in mind, with those initial several shots fired, they're still reasonably accurate. They're kicking basically straight upward, and we don't really see much of a gap between those shots. So as long as you're still on point for your initial shots, the Maddox is still reasonable enough to control. Next, a random attachment change here was with the X9 Maverick's Prestige attachment, the Pulse Load Plus barrel. They just increased the jumping and landing stability improvement from 40% up to 60%, so you'll notice even more stability there. Then the DS20 Mirage saw a handful of buffs. The first thing is we saw a buff to our maximum damage range, so our 4-shot kill range went from about 23 meters up to about 25.5 meters, so nice little boost there. On top of that, they buffed the rapid fire attachment on this. Our rate of fire with rapid fire went from 667 rounds per minute up to 698 rounds per minute, giving us a new time to kill potential up close with rapid fire at 258 milliseconds, which is an excellent time to kill. And on this gun, rapid fire was already a pretty attractive choice. This makes it even more attractive. Then on top of that, for its integrated launcher, they improved the rate of fire from 171 rounds per minute up to 240 rounds per minute, so very noticeable change there. And if you're using the tandem launcher Prestige attachment, they reduced the burst delay from 300 milliseconds down to 200 milliseconds. That's also going to be quite noticeable, so a really nice handful of buffs on the DS20. Now similarly, the Peacekeeper saw a buff to its rapid fire attachment. Our rate of fire with this went from 909 rounds per minute up to 952 rounds per minute, which means our new time to kill potential up close with this is now 252 milliseconds. And that's not mentioning the fact that they also reduced the penalty to our horizontal recoil while using the rapid fire attachment from 25% down to 15%. So that's definitely much more usable on the Peacekeeper now. Although realistically, I still don't see myself using rapid fire on this gun since its standard time to kill potential is already quite good. And I'd rather not add any additional recoil, even if that penalty has been reduced. Next, let's get into the SMG category, and the new SMG, the Rev 46, saw a handful of adjustments, including a slight nerf to our maximum damage value that doesn't change the number of shots to kill at all, and then some headshot value adjustments, which at the end of the day, all of these adjustments did one thing, and that made it so in the second damage range, without the headshot barrel, we now only need 3 headshots mixed in with body shots, rather than 4 in order to cut that down to a 6-shot kill. And that's it. So it really looked like a lot more change than actually did with this gun. After that, for the MPC-25, with its Prestige attachment, the Stratus X barrel, they buffed this in a few ways. The first thing is they increased all of our damage ranges, and we can see those are some really nice boosts to our damage range. And then on top of that, they buffed the recoil improvement that you already get with this barrel. They made it even more powerful when it comes to recoil improvement. And as we can see, looking at it side by side, we're seeing a very nice reduction there. And I think that's going to make this barrel a lot more attractive. I was actually in the process of throwing my gun guide together for the MPC-25. And my conclusion for this barrel was going to be that there's just not enough upsides to really make it worthwhile. And I was actually going to be suggesting a range boost with it. And so, really happy to see this. I would definitely say this barrel is a more attractive option now. And then on top of that for the MPC-25, it's Contra Bloom Laser, which we got just recently out of the weekly challenges. They gave this a little bit of a buff by reducing the damage range penalty from 35% down to just 15%. And this gives us a much more reasonable range profile. While we're still losing range compared to the base MPC, it's not nearly as bad as it was previously, and that's going to make the Contra Bloom a bit more attractive. That was really my primary issue with it. It just felt like it was being way too harsh on the range penalties, so I like the fact that we're seeing this adjustment here. And then finally, they did mention for rapid fire on the MPC, they've just reduced our horizontal recoil penalty from 20% down to 15%, so it'll be slightly more accurate with rapid fire. After that, let's get into the LMG category, and the Sokol 545 saw a buff to its neck multiplier, so it now matches the headshot multiplier, so it's effectively just extending that headshot multiplier down to the neck, and that also applies to the damage barrel if you use that. And then on top of that, there were just a bunch of attachment improvements here. I'm not going to go through every single one of these on the list, but just know many of the attachments that improve our movement speed values and our recoil values, they have been improved on the Sokol 545. And on top of that, they also improved the parallel foregrip, so it no longer harms our recoil gun kick and vertical recoil control, and the aim down sight spread is improved from 1.75 degrees down to 1.45 degrees, so it'll be more accurate with that parallel grip. Now after that, I think a lot of people are going to be happy to see the fact that the Mark.78 saw some very notable nerfs. The first thing they did is they slightly nerfed our maximum damage value, not enough to change the number of shots to kill to the body, but it is enough to require 2 headshots rather than 1 without the headshot barrel in order to cut that down to a 3-shot kill. I think that's very appropriate. And then the next nerf is much more noticeable. In the second damage range, they dropped the damage value down to 24, meaning instead of a 4-shot kill, it's now a 5-shot kill in that range. However, 1 single headshot, even without the damage barrel, will bring that back down to a 4-shot kill. Now on top of that, with the Mark.78, when using the Prestige attachment, which is the belt-fed magazine, previously it was supposed to be giving you aim down sight spread, so it was meant to be a bit inaccurate when aiming down sight and using this, but that wasn't applying properly, and I pointed that out in my gun guide for this. They have now fixed that bug, and therefore we are actually seeing some aim down sight spread now when using this, and as we can see, it's clearly there, and it will be impacting your ability to accurately hit your target at longer ranges. In saying that, at close to mid ranges, this is still pretty accurate and you should still be able to land your shots reasonably effectively, but this is no longer just an obvious choice on the Mark.78. And then finally, for the LMG category, the XM325 just saw a bunch of attachment changes similar to the Sokol 545, so a lot of recoil and movement speed adjustments on various attachments, but the base gun itself didn't change at all. Next, let's talk Marksman Rifles, and for the Warden 308, the first thing is they fixed the damage barrel being unavailable. That happened with the Season 2 update, it just sort of disappeared. That should be fixed now. And along with that, that allows you to break your aim down sight by using a melee attack. And then finally, for the Nova line, not only did it get to that recoil improvement when using the damage barrel, but they also reduced our damage range penalty when using rapid fire or the bolt carrier group. They reduced this range penalty from 10% down to just 6%. So that's Marksman Rifles out of the way. Now let's get into shotguns. And with the M10 Breacher, they added an additional benefit to the Prestige attachment, and that is it will now also improve your sprint to fire time by 25 milliseconds. So that makes it a little more attractive. And the other shotgun change that was made here is with the Echo 12, they increased our second and third damage range drop-offs by a couple meters. So that should make the Echo 12 a little bit better in those mid-ranges. Now after that, let's talk sniper rifles. And they mentioned in the notes here that their backend data was showing that sniper rifles have been too powerful lately, and they made a couple broad changes targeting attachments with sniper rifles. First off, they've nerfed the Strelic laser, and I'm really happy to see this. This is exactly what I was hoping they would make an adjustment to. Instead of just nerfing the sniper rifles across the board, they're targeting the Strelic laser in particular. And with this, your hip to aim down sight spread will now start tightening with the Strelic laser at 50% of your aim down sight time, and that will transition into 100% accuracy once you get fully aimed down sight. Whereas previously, that spread would start tightening immediately. The moment you started aiming down sight, your spread would start tightening and it would be fully accurate at 90% of your actual aim down sight time. And then they just said, for comparison, if you're not using the Strelic laser, your sniper spread won't start tightening until 80% of your aim down sight transition time, and you don't reach perfect accuracy until 100%. So it's still going to be providing a very notable benefit compared to not using it. It's just not going to be quite as powerful as it was before this update. And as I said, I'm really happy to see this instead of just like blanket nerfs to sniper rifles across the board. And then the other thing they did here to all of the sniper rifles is they moved around how they're handling flinch on attachments. And what they've done here is, for the previous sources of flinch resistance in the stock and underbarrel category, they've had their values reduced, so they've nerfed those attachments a little bit. And instead, they provided some new flinch resistance benefits on a barrel and a rear grip, and that will require some more trade-offs in order to gain optimal flinch resistance. So you're still able to get to that point, but now you're sacrificing some attachments that were otherwise really good for something like aim down sight speed, for instance, which is extremely important for quickscopers. So it's more likely that if somebody's going for a full quickscoping build, they're going to be experiencing more flinch than they were previously due to their attachment selection. And again, I really like that they went this route instead of just nerfing the snipers across the board, because I don't want snipers to be incredibly weak, but they definitely have felt quite oppressive lately, and their data shows that. And so this will take a little bit of power away from them. In addition to that though, there was one actual change to a sniper rifle, and that is with the Hawker HX, they have increased the aim down sight time by 10 milliseconds. So not a massive increase there, they didn't destroy it, but they just made it so it aims down sight very slightly slower. And that's it for primary weapons. Next, let's get into the pistols, and with the Velix 5.7, not only did it see the reduced recoil penalties when using the damage barrel, but we also got a rapid fire buff. They improved our rate of fire increase from 4% up to 7%, and unfortunately, unlike the primary guns, I don't have all the data available with time to kill values and everything for rapid fire specifically, but there is a slight rate of fire improvement there. And then with the Coda 9, once again, the damage barrel got the recoil buff, and then on top of that, rapid fire's rate of fire improvement increased from 7% up to 12%, and our horizontal recoil control penalty was reduced from 25% down to 20% when using rapid fire. So definitely some nice buffs there to rapid fire on those two pistols. Then for the ARC M1 launcher, they just addressed an issue that was preventing the low ammo warning from displaying. And then with the new GDL Havoc launcher, they've reduced our reserve ammo capacity by 4, and they've nerfed the MFS Airstrike Mag, which is the prestige attachment that allows you to airburst. And with this, they've slightly reduced all of our splash damage range values. And for this one, they reduced our reserve ammo by 8 rather than just 4 if we're not using this. And then they also mentioned with the Aberrant Grip, it will no longer improve your sprint movement speed. And there we have it. That finally wraps it up for all of the weapon balancing. However, that's not all. There were a bunch of other things that were adjusted or fixed. And I'm going to pick out at least the key elements from this. There were a few like edge case fixes that I'm not going to bother with. But a really big one is they addressed an issue when creating multiple weapon builds from the same blueprint. And this also seems to be applying to base guns as well. For me, there were several guns like the M8 and both of the new guns, the Rev 46 and the EGRT, where I could only make one build of that gun. I couldn't make a separate build. That is now working for me, so it should be working for you hopefully as well. And I'm really happy to see that one taken care of. That was getting quite frustrating to deal with on the few guns where that was happening for me. Then after that, they addressed an issue that prevented players with Ninja equipped from hearing the footsteps of other players where applicable. And on a similar note, later on they mentioned in an audio section, they addressed an audio issue where players were unable to hear jumping, sliding, or walking sound effects for both props and hunters in Prop Hunt. And this issue also affected other multiplayer modes if a player in the lobby had the Ninja perk equipped. So from the sounds of it, it seems like just somebody needed the Ninja perk equipped, because I swear I wasn't hearing footsteps even when I didn't have Ninja equipped and I was like standing still. I still wasn't hearing any footsteps whatsoever, even from people that weren't using Ninja. So apparently that's been fixed, but please let me know if you're still running into issues where you're not hearing footsteps, even though you know for a fact they're not using Ninja. Like you watch the kill cam, for instance, and they're not using Ninja. As for field upgrades, for the mute field upgrade, they increased the duration extension when you get a kill from 7 seconds to 8.25 seconds. For the drone pod, in hardcore game modes, they reduced the damage scaling from 1x down to 0.25, so they've really significantly nerfed the damage of the drone pods in hardcore, and I feel like that one's been a long time coming. I've been hearing hardcore players complain about that since the launch of the game. And then finally for field upgrades, the squad link nerf is here, and what they've done is they just removed the ally linked score event from it, and they increased the charge time from 2.7 to 3 minutes. I gotta say, I think they took this too far, especially doing both of those at once. While the squad link is capable of earning score from a bunch of other sources as well, one of the primary sources of score was from your teammates entering the radius of your squad link and getting that ally linked score. So now that we don't have that at all, that really limits how much score potential we're going to be getting out of a squad link. And so my concern with this ended up coming true. Squad link was never really a major issue, at least I never saw people complaining about it until 10v10 was added. And then with 10v10, it did become an issue because there's so many more players on the map, so you're going to be getting those ally linked score events much more often, and you can rack up score by just sitting in spawn with a squad link, and even earn some high-end streaks without ever seeing an enemy player. So obviously there was an issue there. My hope was that they would do something to target its effectiveness in 10v10 without harming it too much in 6v6, and that's not what happened here. They pretty much just destroyed the squad link in my eyes. And that is quite unfortunate, especially because they also increased the charge time. I think that was totally unnecessary on top of taking its primary source of score away from it. So I do find that to be a bit unfortunate that they took it as far as they did. I know something needed to change for 10v10, but they took it too far in my eyes for regular modes. Then on top of that, it looks like they fixed the HKD bug that was introduced with Season 2, where sometimes HKDs wouldn't drop from the sky, they would just get stuck up in the air. And essentially after that, there were just various stability fixes and a bunch of ranked play improvements. I don't play ranked at all, so I don't really understand most of these, but they updated a lot of the restrictions in ranked play. And there we have it. That's going to wrap it up for the big update that we got, primarily the weapon balancing portion of that. And in general, excellent update. They fixed so many of the issues that have popped up with Season 2 that I was really getting annoyed with. I think for the most part, the weapon balancing changes were really well done and definitely well thought out overall. And really, I think my only complaint with this is the fact that they nerfed the squad link as hard as they did. Now, of course, those are just my opinions on this update, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about it in those comments down below. Are you guys generally happy with these changes and fixes, or maybe not so much? If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.